So the first reviews for Thor Love and Thunder are starting to roll in, and I have to be honest, I'm a little surprised by what I'm seeing. Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
So I have a video series on this channel dedicated to exposing ridiculous professional movie critic reviews, usually found on sites like Rotten Tomatoes.
Fuck you!
And I was fully expecting to have to make one of those videos for this movie, and I probably still will. But much to my surprise, I came across a lot more negative reviews for this movie than I was expecting. Could it be that critics have finally turned a corner and realized what I've been saying for years now? Let's dive into some of these reactions so we can get a clear picture of what exactly is going on here.
Is it just me, or is it getting crazier out there?
Twitter user Boris Kit posted a line from a Hollywood Reporter review that said, "The stakes never acquire much urgency in a movie, too busy being jokey and juvenile to tell a gripping story." So basically, it's a Taika Waititi MCU movie. I don't know why we're surprised by this. I assume this was pretty much what everyone signed up for, considering that's pretty much his MO at this point. Discussing Film on Twitter tweeted out part of their review, which said, "The shortest MCU film we've seen in years. So much time is wasted on Waititi's self-indulgent bits of humor for the sake of setting up a bit rather than spending more on these characters."
No shit.
You mean characterization and character development is taking a backseat to humor? Color me surprised. Calling a Taika Waititi Thor movie self-indulgent is kind of like calling water wet. We're pretty much stating the obvious here. This dude has been telling us for years and backing it up with the projects he produces that he clearly does not give a shit about Thor, his fans, or any of the characters associated with him. He's basically the director's equivalent of an internet troll who just says and does things to get a rise out of people.
Too old for this shit.
He's not an artist, he's a 7-year-old boy that Chris Hemsworth recently spoke about when talking about Love and Thunder. Just setting up one bit and one juvenile joke after another. This is his calling card. Another tweet from Andrew Salazar said, "I'm a huge fan of Ragnarok. You mean the first time that Thor was turned into a joke? But Thor Love and Thunder left me feeling the most empty out of any of the Phase 4 films." Phase 4? More like Phase Bore. For a movie filled with gods and monsters, it spends more time on flat humor than ever feeling truly epic.
Damn!
Imagine for a second having access to the character of Thor and all the Norse mythology that surrounds him. Thousands and thousands of issues of comics and different stories. The badass god of thunder who should be kicking ass and taking names in every single movie he is a part of. You have all of that, and what exactly has Marvel Studios done with him over the past few years? They've made him a buffoon, they've made him a fat slob, and now we are culminating it all with, wait for it, Thor's midlife crisis. Oh, and by the way, now we're going to introduce Lady Thor and make her do all the things that we should have been making Thor do from the very beginning. You ever get the feeling that the people who own this character have no idea who this character actually is? We're not getting epic mythological tales with Thor. Instead, we're just getting Thor Me Too'd by Zeus, Valkyrie, Jane, and of course everyone else in a giant-ass arena.
Fuck me, right?
Okay, I know a lot of these have been rough on Thor Love and Thunder so far, but surely the Garbage Cheers show website that is Rotten Tomatoes will offer you a little bit of relief, and maybe some safe shill opinions like they're supposed to. It does offer some of those, but more on that in another video. Let's focus on the critics on Rotten Tomatoes who are actually being honest with themselves for the first time, I think, ever.
Jesus fucking Christ, it's about time!
Katie Walsh says, "Love and Thunder proves the bloom is off the rose when it comes to Waititi's cutesy take on the God of Thunder. I got news for you. Fuck the bloom. That flower should have never been planted." Tony Stamp says, quote, "Almost feels desperate in its attempts to entertain, fights, special effects, and jokes. But if everything is a joke, then does any of it really matter?" Well, I can answer that, Tony. The answer to that question is absolutely not. And just to clarify, this isn't a new occurrence like Tony seems to be just realizing. MCU stakes in movies have been undermined by humor for a few years now. It's nice to see people catching up and realizing that when humor is overdone, it actually devalues the movie.
Had you ever heard of the healing power of laughter?
Then we have Eric Childress, who says, "Did not think it was possible to make a worse Thor film than The Dark World, but Taika Waititi appears to have pulled it off. Love and Thunder ranks as a low point, to the MCU. Now I understand this is all just a sample size of reactions to this movie, but it is refreshing to see a variation of opinions for once. Of course the film is going to have its apologists and supporters, and they're pretty much going to sing its praises no matter what is put on screen.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
But apparently these negative critic reactions are just too much for some MCU diehards. This must be your first time. This Twitter user, who we'll just call Charles Murphy, said, quote, "With each passing MCU film, I'm reminded that there are a whole lot of critics who really despise what the MCU is, but still go review each movie anyway. This list is always the same and their agenda shines through every review they write."
Erroneous! Erroneous!
Is this person suggesting that there is an agenda against MCU films by critics? These people really do live in their own world, don't they? So by that logic, you're saying the ridiculous amount of positive reviews that MCU films have always received are basically phony? If that's the case, then I would be inclined to agree with him. Or maybe, just maybe, the MCU films have become so unwatchable in Phase 4 that even shill critics can't bring themselves to praise them in good conscience. Maybe critics are finally starting to tell the truth. Maybe the reality that the recent crop of MCU films have been average to below average at best is just too much for some people to hear. Because we know that people just want to live in their echo chamber and be told everything they want to hear.
S-O-F capital T! Soft! Huh?
If you enjoy this movie, then I'm happy for you. The issue we need to overcome is that not everybody needs to share that opinion with you. Because when people don't share their opinion, they go on Twitter and start to cry about agendas. The truth is that the MCU has benefited greatly over the years from a disproportionate amount of positive reviews that, in my opinion, has been created through impartial criticisms. This is why Rotten Tomatoes scores for years were the battle cry of MCU fans who needed their opinion validated. But now, since things aren't going their way anymore, all of a sudden critics' opinions don't matter.
My, how the tables have turned.
I don't know if these Thor Love and Thunder mixed reviews are a turning point for film criticism, but I do know this. The MCU isn't what it used to be, but if you ever wanted to return to what it once was, it's going to take people like myself and others to call out garbage when we see it. I will obviously be giving my honest opinion of Thor Love and Thunder when I eventually see it later this week, but if we're being honest with ourselves and we take into account the track record of this director, we already know what we're getting. And based on some of these reactions, it appears that our assumptions are correct.
Y'all be cool. Nah.